Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us. Once again, the Atheist Experience is live September 14th, 2003. I'm your host, Martin Wagner, my co-host, Ashley Perrien, and joining us once again, Russell Glasser. Happy to see you.
Good to
back
see you
in the TV studio where you belong.
Good choice of music today.
Yes, well, I thought it was very fitting. A little victory for science, we hope.
Not so sure.
Well, we'll see. The fight goes on. But anyway, here we are. We're back. This show is sponsored by Atheist Community of Austin, a nonprofit educational organization promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. ACA has weekly meetings every Sunday morning at the Hot Jumbo Bagel Shop located downtown, 307 West 5th Street, between Guadalupe and Lavaca. That's 10:30 a.m. on Sundays, except for the first Sunday of every month when we have our lecture series in the Mayor Room of the Austin History Center at 9th and Guadalupe. Next month, the first Sunday of October, actually will not be a lecture. It's our an ACA business meeting where I imagine we'll be talking about things like our building fund and what have you. So that's a good thing for members to attend, to have a say in that. But in November, our speaker, I believe, will be James D., no relation to our own Jeff D.
Who spoke last week.
Right. And I have, well, there, we went black, but now we're back. And I don't know his topic. Does anyone know his topic?
I forget.
Well, as soon as we find out, we'll tell you. We'll have it up on the website. But he will be our speaker first Sunday of November. Okay. Oh, and the lectures, I have been told to remind everyone, are at 12:30 p.m., not at noon on the dot. 12:30. Yes. Okay. Other stuff we do at ACA. There is Godless Gamers, of course, every Monday night at 7 p.m. at this man's house, Russell Glasser, and his wife, Virginia. And ACA Happy Hour. It takes place Thursday evenings at Antonio Tex-Mex, which is at the intersection of Highway 183 and I-35. That's Thursday evenings, starts about 7:30-ish, but people trickle in all night long. So just look for the table with Darwin Fish and a bunch of very loud people arguing about stuff, and you'll find us. So what else have we? There is the Nonprofits radio show. Can't forget that. Our internet radio show, which is bi-weekly at the atheistnetwork.com website. Or you can join the live feed from our very own website on the radio show page. And that is 2 o'clock p.m. bi-weekly on Saturdays. The most recent episode was yesterday, so the next one will be Saturday after next. And it's a live MP3 stream, and you can listen to about the last, half dozen or so episodes? Five or so. You can stream those from the radio show page on our website, too. There is a bizarre JavaScript chat room feature that I tried to get on yesterday for the first time, and it worked for me, but I couldn't really tell if I was in the right part of the chat room or because it didn't seem like the people in the chat room were talking about what you guys were talking about on the show. You know, the people in the chat room, they like to go off on their stuff. I mean, we talk about something, and then 10 minutes later, we've moved way on, and they're still talking about whatever evolved out of that conversation. Right. So... Oh, well. Well, it's there, and so presumably you can chat live, and you will interact with the program. Throw out some pithy comment, and Russell will read it. And, the guys will have a big hearty laugh, and it's all fun. Right, so that's Nonprofits every other Saturday, atheistnetwork.com. And last but not least, University Atheists and Agnostics are back in business for the fall UT semester. It's a University of Texas student and faculty registered organization. And we have a title that's coming right up, but they now have a website, and their meetings are Fridays at 4, I believe, in Garrison 200. There it is at the bottom of your monitor. studentorgs.utexas.edu/UAA is their website, and you can go there and have all kinds of fun. So if you're a UT student or faculty member, check them out, because this is the first serious and I think successful attempt at an atheist and agnostic student organization there. So congratulations to them. Okay, I think that does it for announcements, I believe. So we're going to go on without much further ado and tackle the news. But first, just to let everyone know, Russell's on the show today because he and I both testified. We both gave testimony at the State Board of Education textbook hearings on Wednesday. And that was quite the dog and pony show, wasn't it?
It was fun.
Yeah, it was really something else.
But frustrating.
Yeah, but I felt exhilarated at the end of it. I was
Me too.
thrilled to be part of it. It wasn't boring, despite the fact that it went on forever. But it was certainly, I got the feeling of fighting the good fight.
It was kind of like a Star Trek convention for me. It was like, you know how those nerds get, I mean, no offense to Star Trek fans, but I mean, you know how they get all worked up about meeting all their heroes. Yeah. I'm like a creationism geek. and
there's Dembski.
Yeah, I mean, just to see William Dembski, Michael Behe, and the pro-science people.
Yeah.
Like Eugenie Scott. That was a real blast.
Yeah, I'm a little more impressed by the likes of Steven Weinberg, but
yes.
it was kind of fun seeing some of the ID leading lights sitting off in their little section squirming and kind of getting all indignant. But we are going to talk about that today because the debate was this year, the textbooks in question are biology textbooks, and sure enough, the creationists are out in force with their intelligent design camp trying to influence how science is taught. And there were a lot of people there making sure that, that the process of science was not going to be politicized, by this, very religiously motivated right-wing movement. So we're going to talk about that, but for now, Ashley is going to do the news. So,
okay.
Ashley, what is happening in the world? And you have some stuff, too, you want to mention?
These are all related to the textbook stuff, so I'll wait till we're talking about that.
So we'll do that then.
Okay. First piece of news from the department that just goes from bad to worse. Egyptian lawyers are looking to sue the Egyptian people. No, I'm sorry. Egyptian lawyers are looking to sue the Jewish people for plundering their gold during Exodus in the Bible.
What?
Thousands of years ago, the Jews were held as slaves in Egypt, according to the Bible.
Okay.
They then escaped, and on their way out, they ransacked and pillaged everything, and they took a whole bunch of gold out. Now the Egyptians are a little bit perturbed, and they're bringing them to, and they're going to try and bring them to court over this.
Wait a minute. Do they have evidence that this actually happened?
Well, it's in the Bible.
Oh.
There we are. Okay, that's all. I keep forgetting.
Yeah,
that's all the
the relevant passage is Exodus 12, verse 35 and 36. Saying
Can't argue with that.
Yeah.
Saying, I know. They basically took gold as they went out.
So does this mean now we're going to see lawsuits and things based on like Greek myths, like the sack of Troy, and
Well, those aren't true, Martin.
The Bible is true, though.
wow. I just you guys have to keep straightening me out on these things because I just can never distinguish.
But the flip side to this is, that's bad enough. Take the Bible and say, hey, just a minute, and try and sue over it. Now, the Jewish lawyers are turning around and saying, okay, if you can sue us for the gold, we can sue you for the 400 years of slavery.
Being slaves, right.
And these are wages that are past due. And so they were owed this gold. This is news, people.
Is this not getting laughed out of?
Well, it hasn't actually been brought to court yet. The lawyers are investigating it.
Okay.
The possibility of it.
How are they investigating
But,
it?
What's there to investigate?
Yeah.
Apparently, Exodus 12, 35, and 36 must be pretty long verses if they're still looking into it. And they're
trying to
even
figure out
talking
exactly where the gold was taken from, whose gold it was, how much gold was taken from each location.
Exactly.
And
let's blame the entire Jewish people for this.
Plus, I think that shekel conversion rate is a little difficult to do.
I imagine the Jews are thinking right now, there's just about nothing left that can be done to us after all these years. We've suffered every indignity possible.
They could be sued for all of this now.
And now we're being sued for like some 5,000-year-old myth. It's like, you think it never rains but it pours.
Yep.
Well, even assuming that it was true, isn't there something like a statute of limitations?
They take that into account. They take that.
Long time.
He gave no details of which court he planned to file the case in, or whether he thought such a case would be exempt from the sort of statute of limitations that many countries rule out legal cases.
Well, proving it even happened would help.
That would definitely be a thumbs up for him.
Yeah. But in any case, like, Egypt's not hurting now, right? I mean, they have like these big pyramid things, and there's a big tourist trade, and it's not like this is a country that is in a state of economic squalor. And can they demonstrate any sort of material harm that has come to their nation as a result of having lost all this gold?
He declined to put a value on the goods plundered. So.
Well, see, I was wondering how they made that calf, right? Like in the middle of the desert when Moses is up on the Mount Sinai.
If you're in the middle of the desert, where do you get enough gold to build
having a little tete-a-tete with God, and he comes down and there's this golden cow that they've made somehow. And now at least, well, maybe that's where... I mean, that's where the gold came from.
So you're saying they were lugging around huge sacks of gold bars for 40 years?
Well,
you know, and
apparently.
No nomadic desert brigands said, I wonder what's in all those bags. So, oh, boy.
So
this is just supremely silly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They can actually contemplate this, and then again, countersuits, well, you held us for slavery. These are past due wages.
Yeah. Didn't you guys on the radio show yesterday mention about, like, this is exactly how ridiculous it can get when you take these mythical claims seriously?
Oh, probably.
Try to apply them to a real world scenario.
Exactly.
A lawsuit over some, without good archaeological evidence, seriously mythical, because, no archaeologist has found, digging around in that area, in the whole Sinai Peninsula, they haven't found any evidence that you would expect to find.
No getaway cars.
If there were, if there was at least 40 years of settlements going on, because you're talking about, people having babies and at least that generation getting to adulthood, and then probably a new generation being born all in 40 years, and there's probably going to be traces of settlements and artifacts and what have you. Yeah. But, gee whiz, nothing. So
I think they're going to find them with the weapons of mass destruction in Iraq.
Oh, that must be it. Yeah, you'll have like the fragments of the Ten Commandments. You'll have the Ark of the... Yeah, the weapons of mass destruction are going to be in the Ark of the Covenant.
This would make an awesome Indiana Jones movie. If only Harrison Ford was still young enough.
Yeah, they're doing an Indy 4. So
yeah, I've heard of it.
So that should be that. We ought to send a memo to Spielberg's people. Like, you should have Saddam Hussein's weapons of mass destruction in the Ark of the Covenant. For Indy 4. There you go. So it's timely social commentary.
Wow.
As well as a popcorn movie. So you can... All right.
Okay.
Well, that's silly. What's next?
That's wacky.
Okay.
Blind faith. Another piece of evidence that just because you're, all pious and religious and such, you're not necessarily a good person. Mm-hmm. In Beaumont, Texas, more than 100 Baptists... invested in Reverend Ronald Rudolph's investment scheme, which was trading plastics around the world. He went to prison after swindling his flock out of $3.5 million.
Wow.
So,
this is called affinity fraud, I believe.
Yeah.
When people will use religious a religious sales pitch.
Yeah.
To hook a religious person into
Isn't that disturbing that it's done often enough that it has its own name?
Yeah, just about.
Well, like all those Christian car dealerships, you won't get ripped off here. We're Christians. So, they even say Beaumont's fraud was small compared to the Baptist Foundation of Arizona, which promised to build churches. This scam cost 20,000 victims almost $600 million.
Wow.
And in Florida, another bogus investment scheme cost churchgoers $19 million.
Boy.
So they're not going for small, chump change.
No. A good friend of mine, he was telling me how his dad has fallen for this kind of thing before.
Wow.
His dad is this extreme, like fire and brimstone, we're in the end times kind of guy. And fell for a scheme where he was pitched the idea, Armageddon's around the corner, and this was right around the year 2000, when the world was supposed to end, and it forgot. But and he was sold this idea that what the evil government, was going to take everyone's gold, right? Was going to confiscate everyone's private gold. Reserve, whatever gold you own.
Because that would be so helpful in a future world where there's no, where it's all...
Well, they just want to take wealth away from the people because that makes it easier for them to, conquer us and stuff, right? But, so my friend's dad, gave this man thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars worth of gold, as well as whoever else got scammed by this guy. Yeah. And then guy just took a powder, vanished without trace. With the gold. It was just a complete, ripoff.
Yeah.
But he was suckered in by this whole end times conspiracy theory, anti-government paranoid.
As I'm sure a lot of people were at that time.
Stuff. Yeah.
So made a lot of stupid investments and did strange things to try and protect themselves against the the coming apocalypse of Y2K.
Yeah. So, so what is going to happen to this Reverend Ronald Randolph fellow?
They don't have anything in here about it. It's more of a general article about this, focusing on this one.
I forgot. Has he been apprehended or?
I don't know.
Okay. So
it doesn't say. This is sort of a commentary on just being scammed by religious people.
Yeah. So this guy's nipped off to Switzerland or something.
Apparently, yeah. I don't know.
It's a shame. It really is.
But yeah, I mean, one couple lost over $110,000. So,
wow.
Invested in plastic trading.
Because there's such a future in it.
Yeah. And from a lot of these things, they get nothing more than an apology. So if they're lucky enough to get that out of $110,000.
Yeah.
So.
My goodness.
So can't trust too many people.
Well,
out there.
if
got to be careful.
There are people who are dumb enough to fall for this email Nigerian, Norwegian. Might as well could be one. Which could just as easily be Norwegian. Nigerian investment
did you have the one from last week?
Oh, do I have that? I saw it in my car. It must still be out there.
Okay.
Nigerian email?
Yes, it was one that I got as junk email.
Yeah.
I got one from a guy
actually knew about that.
Well, the new spin was this is one I hadn't heard before. This isn't really news, but we'll go off in this discussion really quickly.
Scams are fun.
Exactly. Essentially, he wrote me saying, "I am a man of God," and basically, this guy he claimed to be a lawyer for a couple that died in Nigeria. They had been doing ministry and doing a whole bunch of work. When they died, he wrote the will.
Okay.
And he came up after selling their properties and stuff in the will. He got like $100 million.
The worst getting?
No. About $100 million. He then, embezzled this money basically and took it for himself. And then while watching Benny Hinn on TV, he had a revelation and found God, and now he wanted to do the right thing. So he went on the internet looking for good people to find who to give this $100 million to.
Because we know Benny Hinn never scams anybody.
And he found my email address on a Christian website. So he wanted to give me $100 million to go out and do God's work.
Well, just to fill people in, I mean, what typically these Nigerian scam letters always have the same form, which is, I have a whole bunch of money, you're special, I want to entrust a whole bunch of money to you so that I can get it out of the country or something.
Yeah, but you get to keep a part of it.
You will keep a small part of it. And of course, one of the reasons this works is people will say, oh, ha, 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 I'll scam this person, they think to themselves, and I'll get, all the money. But what really usually winds up happening is they keep stringing you along, getting a little bit of money out of you at a time. And then if you
to transfer the funds, it's going to cost us $1,200.
Yes.
So could you put that money in our account, and then we'll use that to transfer the funds.
And then if they manage to get you to come to Nigeria, you're really screwed because the entire, these scam letters are like 1/3 the Nigerian economy. The police, the police are all in on it. They look the other way, and people have been robbed of everything and killed in Nigeria.
I haven't heard of that.
Wow.
I haven't heard of that.
I'll send you some links.
Wow.
This is not a nice place. Yeah, Nigeria is a little bit of a corrupt country, you could say.
Apparently.
So, not the place for your next vacation stop.
But this letter was just strange because it was just so overtly religious.
I got one that actually claimed
I've never
to
seen
be,
that before.
I got one that claimed to be from Charles Taylor, the deposed president of Liberia.
Oh,
yeah,
that was
original.
That was a new spin on it, and but it's just nuts that people will fall for this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But it just goes to show, right, that this is why we need critical thinking skills, folks.
Yes.
I mean, this is why we need skepticism. This is why skepticism is a virtue, like the sign says.
Yeah.
So,
folks,
learn it.
good rule of thumb: if it sounds too good to be true,
It always
probably
is. It always is, generally speaking.
Well,
not always, but usually.
Usually.
Enough of the time to make it.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
One more, and then we're gonna.
Okay, last story. The Saudis have found a new thing to blame for all the immorality in the world and things to ban and culture parts to come down.
It used to be women wearing pants, right? Or that was
that was Swaziland.
All right, yeah.
That was Swaziland.
Although I agreed with them, actually. Yeah. I mean, I think that's great. You're right. That's
Absolutely.
the cause of all the problems in the world. And if women would just all take their pants off, I'm
world would
kidding
be a
you
happy
two.
place.
God, chill out. All right.
unless you're really going to do it.
Yeah. He said it, not me. All right.
Oh.
Okay, but anyway,
All right.
their new icon of immorality and corruption
is
Barbies. Barbie doll by Mattel. Mm-hmm. Saudi
Okay.
Arabia's religious police have
pants?
declared have declared Barbie dolls a threat to morality, claiming that the revealing clothes of the Jewish toy, already banned in the kingdom, are offensive to Islam.
When?
Apparently, Barbie is
well, if it's
Jewish.
bad, it must be Jew. These are Saudis after all, so if it's bad, it's a Jewish thing, I guess, is the meme.
Yeah.
Tall blonde chicks. I mean, it's not exactly the stereotype.
Well, there's got to be some, right? That's right. I think tall blonde Jewish chicks ought to turn up at the studio to show us that they really exist.
Yeah.
And take off their pants while they're at it.
Be quiet. Enough.
Jewish Barbie
now
dolls.
That's just not appropriate talk for this kind of
Yes.
reputable show.
Yeah, I know. People
Jewish-
think we don't have any morals or anything.
Jewish Barbie dolls with their revealing clothes and shameful postures, like standing up, apparently. Accessories and tools are a symbol of decadence to the perverted
their
West.
knees don't bend, so when you walk them, they have to kind of boost step.
Well, that would make them not Jewish if they were. Yeah,
Good point.
Yeah, so if you got Barbie a pair of jack boots and with the non-bending knees, she's instantaneously not Jewish anymore. That works.
Let us beware of her dangers and be careful. There are posters which say, a strange request. A little girl asked her mother, "Mother, I want jeans, a low-cut shirt, and a swimsuit like Barbie." Apparently, all these Muslim women are saying this. It is no problem that little girls play with dolls, but these dolls should not have the developed body of a woman and wear revealing clothes.
Yeah, because, we wouldn't want women to get the idea that someday their bodies will develop.
Exactly.
I mean,
exactly. Frightening concept.
Barbies are women.
Yes, but we don't need to rub that fact in.
Oh.
well, I think someone worked out that if Barbie were an actual woman,
Like 7 feet tall.
wouldn't she'd be like 7 feet tall with an 18-inch waist. So she would be, so she couldn't eat. She would have no ribs. It would be, so she would be so it is kind of a freakish, sort of distortion.
I've heard that some of the Barbies in more recent times are
And her
slightly
feet would
toned
be this
down,
big.
but I don't know.
Yeah. That's right. She'd have these tiny little, feet like old Japanese ladies with the bound feet or something.
Yeah. These revealing clothes will be imprinted on their minds, and they will refuse
I think
to wear
Karen's
the clothes.
saying a 4-inch waist. Is that what you're saying? No.
Oh, a size 4
Size
shoe.
4.
Wow. Nice as...
Oh.
And a triple N chest.
Triple N? Yikes. Wow.
So, yep, now we can blame Barbies, and
Plastic
again,
surgery nightmares.
we can blame the Jews again.
Okay. Oh, right.
Well, that's a relief.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
Jewish Barbie
you
dolls.
steal the damn gold, you make these
And then you go
horrible
make Barbie dolls
dolls
with
to
it.
mutate women's minds. What's wrong with you people? Good grief. And none of you are blonde and tall. I mean, to add insult to injury.
So, and that's it for the news
That
of the
is
week.
just, this was just all silly news this week. It's
Yes.
just wow.
Yes, it was.
Really, really, really? Well, now, the Mattel Corporation.
I almost expect
Make
John
Barbie.
Cleese to come on and say, this sketch is too silly.
You would think never one to miss a marketing opportunity. They could come out with like a Barbie burqa. Would they not? Right? That would work.
Yes, here's the
In
good
all different
Barbie.
designer colors.
Yeah.
And because they came out with...
Plain. You can't take off the
Right,
shrouds and
doesn't
everything.
come off.
Well, they came out with like Barbie's pal who's paralyzed and she's the wheelchair girl.
Oh,
really?
They did that. Yeah, they came out with a wheelchair Barbie.
Wow.
This was a few years ago. I was still in the comics business at the time. I had a bunch of friends actually who were toy collectors because there's some crossover with like comics fans and toy collectors.
Yeah.
And they were all nuts over this thing because apparently the wheelchair is this incredible, piece of, very, very like accurately done wheelchair. So they've like, marketing niche there.
Yeah.
And because I saw it on the news, and they had like a little girl in a wheelchair playing with wheelchair Barbie. So why not why not Burqa Barbie?
Yeah.
Why not? So, yes, it's not a thing you want to see, dear. No. Inside joke in the studio, folks. Just ignore us. All right, so that's news then, right?
That's it for news, yes.
Although we'll do it if you do it. All right, but not with the cameras on us. Back to the pants thing. Okay, well, thank you for the news, Ashley. We're now going to talk about the SBOE hearings.
Yes.
Russell, why don't you start? Why don't you, let's talk about what they were for, what was going on, what this is all about, and why we had to have this big hearing
All right,
where 140 people testified.
160 were signed up, but a lot of them were no-shows, so I guess you're right. So we had this State Board of Education hearing, and this is a big deal because in Texas, we're the second largest purchasers of textbooks in the entire country. So what happens in Texas strongly affects what happens in the rest of the country. So if the State Board of Education would, for instance, reject a textbook, there's a very strong chance that the publishers would decide to go ahead and just not publish it at all because, they would lose too much money. Unfortunately, what's been happening in the last few years is that the creationists, who you've probably seen in the news around all over the country, trying to have been trying to load up school boards so that the school boards will vote for these really insane things. But it hasn't been working too well. Like, for instance, in Kansas, they had this thing where they put a disclaimer no, they didn't put a disclaimer. They simply removed evolution entirely from the standards of the country. From the standardized tests, basically. And they said, you can go ahead and teach evolution if you want, but you won't be tested on it. So I'm sure the students are like, yeah, right. We're going to learn that. Yeah. Of course, their victory was short because a couple of years later, they were voted out en masse afterwards. And
the state became a laughingstock. I mean, it was just the butt of jokes from coast to coast.
Right.
Yeah.
And then Florida came along and took that away from them.
Yeah. Right.
But other than that, so anyway, the school board is now is stacked with creationists, or at least there are like 2 or 3 very strongly creationist members, especially Terry Leo, who we'll get to.
And that's in Texas.
And then the other 12 people are like, kind of apathetic about it.
They can swing either way. They don't really have an ideological, axe to grind.
Right.
Whereas Terry Leo and the one other guy with the mustache, whose name I can't remember.
Yeah.
The other guy who was doing the really aggressive and I thought often insulting questioning.
Yes.
Of people. But definitely those two seemed like the real champions of the ID movement.
Exactly.
But go ahead and talk a little bit about how their approach has changed.
Right. Their approach has changed greatly because, first they were trying to get rid of evolution, then they were trying to bring in creationism, then they were trying to make creationism all scientific, right? And then they were moving to intelligent design, which is like pretending that creationism isn't really about God. Now they're not even doing that anymore. What they're doing instead is trying to nitpick little things about evolution, which are written about in a book by Jonathan Wells called Icons of Evolution. There are a number of little things that they say, you guys teach this as true about evolution, and we don't think they're true. So we want to teach the strengths and weaknesses of evolution. In fact, so we had, for instance, William Dembski, who's a big shot. He's not a scientist, but he's a mathematician at Baylor, and he has this whole thing about how the evolution is so mathematically improbable that there must be design behind it. Yeah. But that's not what he talked about. He talked about this strengths and weaknesses thing that was a theme. Yeah. Do we have that tape queued up? Let's roll it if we've got it.
Okay. Well, Steve will work on it, and we'll just keep describing what's... I was in email contact
to ignore the push to take science out of our school science textbooks.
Okay.
He'll miss the point entirely.
Nice black screen.
Yeah. In the interim, we'll come back to us while Steve is queuing that up. But or maybe we won't. Well, we'll keep talking.
It's
there we
dark.
Are. Okay.
Better.
When you queue it up, go ahead and go to the other feed, Steve. But I was in email contact prior to the hearing with a fellow named Victor Stenger in Colorado, who is a scientist who has proved that this one law that Dembski has concocted called like the law of conservation of energy or something, which is one of his mathematical proofs against, are in favor of intelligent design and against the idea that this could all happen through natural processes. And Stenger has shown that this is actually provably wrong. That Dembski has just gotten it wrong, and doesn't really know what he's talking about. And he sent me some of that literature.
But Dembski, like the other scientists, don't go for this newfangled peer review stuff.
I know.
Where
That's
they
the thing.
actually invite other scientists to criticize them.
Yeah, and that is the big difference, is it not? That's between the approach. Are we queued up?
Have we got that tape?
All right, let's go and see if we have a William Dembski ready to listen to. It's access, folks. Sometimes stuff works. All right.
In his July testimony, David Hills implored you to ignore the push to take science out of our school science textbooks, close quote. Hill has missed the point entirely. The point is to put more science into our textbooks by including not only the strengths, but also the weaknesses of neo-Darwinian evolutionary theory.
Thank you, sir.
So
you look just a little bit flustered there at running out of time.
Yeah.
you can see my terrible camera work there.
No, it's okay.
You'll see it gets
Thanks, Steve.
even more Blair Witchy in my later clips.
Okay. So you're warned, people.
Sorry about that.
But now, getting to the point that he had brought up, wanting to include more science in the textbooks by introducing both what the strengths and what he perceives to be
and weaknesses.
the weaknesses. But are the weaknesses that they bring up scientifically valid?
Right.
That is the question. You will not be putting more science in the text by bringing up weaknesses that you perceive to be in evolution if the weaknesses you point out aren't backed up by good science.
Exactly.
And this is the problem. Right?
And that's what my speech was about, which is basically the way you tell whether something is scientifically valid is one of the many ways that you tell is if somebody is willing to put their stuff up for peer review, which is a process by which you submit your work to a journal, and then every other scientist who's interested in the subject tries to criticize it. And, people often think this means that scientists are hostile to a certain idea, but it doesn't mean that. It means that scientists like to criticize everything. Because if you don't criticize something, then you can't be sure whether it might be wrong and you just didn't realize it.
Yeah, science has very rigorous standards for a reason.
Right.
Yeah. You've got, they
want to be right.
And that takes a lot more than just everyone, okay, show of hands, who likes this idea? That really isn't what it's all about.
So, this whole idea of peer review is not something that the creationists, and I continue to call them creationists, even though they're just saying, oh, we're just criticizing evolution. We're not talking about God or anything. They're creationists. Let's be blunt. They don't publish in these journals. And they say that this is because of a big conspiracy that the scientific community has after them. But there was one guy last night, on Wednesday, who I recall saying that, what was it? I've read this book by Jonathan Wells that has all these criticisms. And, I wouldn't even accept this as an undergraduate submission. Yeah,
if he said if this not only would he not accept it as an undergraduate paper, but if it were he was an editor of a peer-reviewed journal.
Yes.
In his particular field of biology, which was not. I don't want to say not statistic. It was something. Okay, it was something. That's good, Wagner. But he said that if this had been submitted to his journal, if the conclusions in Wells's book, he said the paper would have been returned without comment.
Yeah,
that's how wrong, and that's how flagrant the distortions in Wells's book are.
Right.
So this is the first problem that we find with the people trying to push intelligent design is that they claim, this is the new claim, we now have strong science backing up our contention that evolution didn't happen and that there really is some sort of intelligent guiding force that we don't want to identify because that would be religious. But that made everything. But it turns out that they don't, and even the scientists like Dembski and Wells, these guys have published peer-reviewed papers, be he on other
subjects.
But when it comes to this particular topic, evolutionary biology, they go straight to the popular press.
And a lot of people don't realize that. It just doesn't count if you publish on other subjects. Yeah. William Dembski is a mathematician. Unless he has done something truly incredible and revolutionary, he has no business talking about biology at all. Anybody can talk about it, but to actually claim to be an authority is ridiculous.
Yeah. But what the I think knowing that they have this kind of weakness in their approach, as you said earlier, what they do is they try to pack these school boards and these state boards of education, and this brings us to Ms. Leo, right?
Well,
who was affectionately referred to all evening long by people I was talking to as that woman. It's like the phrase "that woman" just. When I turned up. Let me explain to you how it all went. Wednesday morning at about 11:30, the Texas Freedom Network. And we can toss up their URL at some point. Texas Freedom Network is a watchdog organization.
They are a really cool bunch of
brilliant.
People. I dig them.
Keeping an eye on the shenanigans of the far religious right, okay, which is what this whole ID movement is motivated by. And they had a lunch, which also was sort of a group huddle, where we all kind of talked about, okay, here's what these guys are going to try to pull and what have you. Then the actual hearings started at 1-ish, right? And then they went all evening long. I turned up first. It was about 4:30. And I saw Michelle Gadouche, our co-chair, ACA co-chair, who also testified. She was coming out of the lobby with John Kuntz. And the first thing she said to me was, I just want to throttle that woman. And I knew immediately who she was talking about, right? So like that woman became Terry Leo's nickname all evening long. And what Terry Leo did with because she has been coached by the Discovery Institute, which is this big
Jonathan Wells, who I mentioned earlier, sent her this huge brief on what kinds of questions to ask.
Right. And so how did the list of testimonies stack up that day?
First of all, I'd like to say that the whole hearings went on until 1:30 a.m.
I did not testify until 10:45.
Yes.
Yeah.
And people were basically speaking in the order that they had requested to speak.
Yeah.
Except that as soon as Terry Leo could, and before the hearings were even public knowledge, she privately contacted a whole bunch of creationist speakers and piled them onto the list. So of the first 40 speakers, 35 were creationists. It took them 4 hours just to get through that page.
Right, because what happened was each testimony, you had 3 minutes to give your testimony. And then board members could question you as long as they wanted after your testimony. And so what Terry Leo would do, which with all her creationist pals, she would just lob softballs at them.
Yes,
like for 10, 15 minutes at a stretch, while not asking any questions of the pro-science people.
Right. In fact, we've got a clip of Terry Leo just sort of stammering her way into, basically fawning all over the speaker and saying, and trying to make his point for him so that they'll fill up extra time. Can we get that clip?
Let's watch.
I was just going to say that you support that ongoing work of scientists who support ID theory. Not all of who are Christians, not all of who have the same beliefs. But you also support separation of church and state and have funded and given seminars on that very thing because it has nothing to do. There's no hidden agenda here. There are Christian scientists, there are agnostics, there are Jewish scientists that believe in ID theory.
Intelligence, again, I'd like to talk more about design, but that really is not what we're recommending.
Yeah.
Well,
which is, of course, a big, it's a big fat lie because, which I brought up in my testimony, where I quoted, guys like Jonathan Wells and William Dembski. Basically, Jonathan Wells, who in an article that he wrote said, I prayed to God, and God told me to devote my life to destroying Darwinism. Dembski, in one of his books, he says, any view of science that ignores Christ is deficient. So, and here's Terry Leo saying, this isn't about religion. So it's a big fat lie.
In fact, I have something from Terry Leo.
Yeah.
Which should just show what kind of bull she's talking.
Yeah.
This is, actually, you can go to her website, terryleo.com.
Oh, you're kidding me.
Oh, jeez.
No. Do not put that on screen, Steve. We don't need that to advertise it that much. But
just to prove that I'm not misquoting her, because this comes straight from something she linked from her website. So she's obviously proud of it. It says, this is not about biology books, but about some other textbook fight. And it said, conservative groups already have had some success in getting publishers to edit information for reasons other than factual accuracy. One target has been global warming, which the groups want presented as a speculative theory. Another is the phrase, this is the good part, the phrase fossil fuels, because to talk about fossil fuels is to talk about fossils, and to talk about fossils means to talk about the Earth millions of years ago, which contradicts biblical timelines and supports biological evolution.
Holy cow.
They were theories being presented as fact, said Terry Leo, the newest conservative member of the state's education board.
Okay, so this woman is just a complete,
She's not
lying bimbo.
She's not just a creationist. She's a young Earth creationist,
That
which
is
is the
crazy.
wackiest of the wacky.
And to sit there and listen to her lying, saying, "Oh, well, we don't have anything against evolution," when of course, her own words are saying, of course, that she does. When you have the ID people saying, "Oh, yeah, this is all about my belief in God," and tell me something: who are these agnostic scientists?
Name one.
Who believe in intelligent design, when the very concept of intelligent design presupposes some sort of supernatural being capable of creating universes and living things in them. So who are these agnostic scientists? List one.
There was a great speech later on in the evening. I don't remember if it was before or after you, but I think it was a little bit before you. He said, so I'm confused about Jonathan Wells, because in one book I read that he says, well, I was just this innocent undergraduate student studying biology, and I started to get concerned about all these apparent errors that were being taught. And so, it sounds like he came from this neutral perspective and then just became aware of these errors. And then he read the quote where he said, I made it my lifelong goal to destroy evolution. Which is it?
Yes, right. But to get back to the way the whole series of testimonials was structured, the net effect of front-loading all of the creationists was that by the time 4 hours had gone by, the media was done. There was this, forest of television cameras, and then they pretty much were like, okay, we got what we need, because they're only going to get like 30-second sound
and I
bites
wouldn't expect them to stay until 1:30.
So they split, right? And this had the net effect of giving them this sort of misrepresentation of exactly who was there and what side was really being pitched for. Because after the first 35 creationists, there were more during the evening.
Yeah, in fact, it was almost solid pro-evolution.
Yeah.
Let's keep
pro-science. I mean, you had about
let's not introduce these
the entire
nonsense
evening.
Errors.
Yeah, the entire evening was, I would say, about 65 to 70% skewed towards, with people in favor of teaching correct science.
Yes.
But you wouldn't get that impression.
And those were the people who obviously knew what they were talking about. Those were the, biology professionals.
Stephen Weinberg.
Those were Stephen Weinberg, Nobel laureate.
Yeah. Which, to their credit, the board allowed him to speak.
For an extra long amount of time.
Just out of respect for his stature, even though that woman, presume at the end, this was so funny, she thought that she would try to lecture him on a little point, right? This man is a Nobel laureate, okay, right? Smarter than everyone in that room put together. And
I don't know about that. There were some incredibly smart people in that room.
There were some smart people, I know. But I mean, come on, let's... but she brought up some little point. And he, in his calm, professorial, deep voice...
He sounds kind of like James Earl Jones.
Yeah. And he just, spanked her like a little bitch, right? I had this image of Stephen Weinberg... perfectly professional, right? But I just had this image of Stephen Weinberg taking Terry Leo over his knee and like, you silly girl, silly. That was just... Is this just so wonderful?
Do we have a clip of this?
No, but I just saw that image in my mind.
I will have the audio for you, but I'll talk about that later.
Maybe we can get somebody to do a flash animation for us. But that was just the impression I got, because she thought she was, she's like, oh no, I have to, right. And he just very calmly, as if talking to a particularly slow student in one of his classes.
Which she was.
Yeah. Just knocked her down, and he was just completely brilliant, got a huge ovation from the entire room, as did another speaker who really impressed me, who was a high school sophomore. Kid.
Oh yes, he was incredible.
Well, I unfortunately I didn't bring the list of names of everybody, but this kid was brilliant. He, I guess 15 years old.
15 years old.
He switched his place in line because it was getting late and he had to go home and go to bed, right? So he went up, and the board was very respectful to him, and he was amazing. He had public speaking skills that experienced adult public speakers don't have.
Yeah.
In that room full of scientists and educators and everything and professional BSers, he was one of the best speakers of the night.
He held his own and basically came out and said, I've looked at something like 9 out of the dozen textbooks that are up for review here.
Wow.
I think that they do in their current form, which is what all the pro-scientists were saying, the pro-science, the professors, the people. Thinking, no, don't change anything. It's like the textbooks in their current form are fine in terms of addressing the strengths and, possible weaknesses of the evolutionary theory.
Yes.
And just impressed absolutely everyone, got a huge ovation from the room. And even that woman was not dumb enough to try to,
go attacking a 15-year-old kid.
There was so much goodwill for him in the room.
Yeah.
But he was
Wow.
terrific.
That's
And, I see a kid like that and I'm like, okay, there's hope for America in small doses after all. But he was great.
There's another speaker. There were several out-of-town speakers, and out of state, and they didn't get to go until the end of the night.
Yes.
So we didn't get to hear like many of the Discovery Institute big shots like Michael Behe and Jonathan Wells until the end. But there were also some very excellent people from the National Center for Science Education. And one of them who pretty much wrapped up the night very excellently, just put a great little footer on the whole evening, was Dr. Alan Gishling?
Yes.
Gishlick. Yes.
I think that's right.
And I would like to see that clip now.
Okay. All right, it's queued up, so we'll watch.
But it's important to look at the versions they have. Do they get what generally scientists think? And I think they are accurate. If these examples that we've talked about endlessly tonight are as flawed as some critics have claimed, then why aren't they asking them to be removed? Instead, they're asking you to leave them in and then criticize them. This would have the effect of teachers saying, well, we just made you learn this, and now we're going to tell you it's wrong. This would actually have a far worse effect on students' understanding of biology as we in the field understand it, because it would leave them with the impression that we really are in doubt about many of these objects, which we are not. Now, there may be discussions about the degree to which certain of these examples are not presented perfectly, and we always hope that textbooks improve them. I have certainly made my effort when I've worked with textbooks to improve many of the things that I see as mistakes. And for that, I thank you for letting me come and speak to you from out of state and so late in the day. It's pretty amazing that you're all here, including the court reporter. Wow, what a stud.
Thank you.
There he is.
Thanks, Steve. That was a really interesting point that I don't think I'd heard any of the speakers during the evening bring up. It's like, all right, why put weaknesses in a textbook?
Yeah, why not just teach what is, what correct science is, and then just toss out, what has gone wrong? Because that's what real scientists do, is, oops, we made a mistake, move on.
And it occurs to me that if they are concerned about that sort of thing, which I don't think they are from an honest position, right? I don't think this really is all about, let's teach the strengths and the weaknesses.
Science.
Because
I think Steve can put the phone number up now.
Yes, he can. Yeah, and this is a live call-in show still, by the way, folks. But because I think what the Discovery Institute wants, right, is if students keep hearing the term weaknesses in the theory of evolution, then they develop an association in their minds, right? They'll develop this word association, evolution weak, and the net effect of that will be to end up just making students mistrust the entire field of study in evolution. And then at that point, that's
then they'll go to intelligent design and then biblical creation, because that's their long-term goal.
Right. So this is sort of the wedge strategy, but just with a different approach, as it were.
And the point that I was trying to hit on in my talk was that it's not the job of the school boards and the textbooks to dictate what correct science is.
Right.
Scientists figure out what correct science is first. Right. And then you teach what they found. For someone like Terry Leo to be presuming to lecture scientists on how science should be taught is just ass backwards.
Especially with Steven Weinberg, for crying out loud. Yeah. And
come on.
Yeah, it's dismaying to me that in this day and age, like what are we, 80 years now after the Scopes trial and everything, and that this still has to take place, that we still have to have these kinds of discussions. it really is just nonsense. And I think that it shows what a long way the human race has to go before, we throw off just these things that are holding us back, these shackles of, our superstitious atavisms, I just, because that really is what this is about. I mean, who is the intelligent designer they are talking about? I was chatting during a lot of the evening with a woman named Amanda Walker. Brilliant.
Yes.
Biology teacher. Really cool chick, too. Just a very cool person to talk to.
I got her business card.
You did. All right. Well, too bad, because you're married. But,
Darn.
but just very, no.
My wife is watching this show, so luckily.
But just very cool person all the way. But she was like that boy we were talking about, young man we were talking about earlier. She was like, he's one of mine. Yes, dude. She was beaming with pride. But I was talking with her about this and mentioned this whole thing, and I was telling, and she was like, oh, I don't want to go there in terms of the whole question of, well, who is this intelligent designer and where did the designer come from? And I tried to point out to her, see, you got to go there because that's really what this is. Okay, and because if they want to suggest an intelligent designer that it had to have been involved in the process of life, the universe, and everything, but then they don't want to address who or what kind of being this intelligent designer is and how this intelligent designer works and where the designer came from, etc., etc., etc. Then what they're doing, right, is they are essentially negating their criticisms of evolution on the grounds that evolution, it leaves so many unanswered questions.
Right.
And therefore it's a weak theory. Because all they're doing is they're replacing that with a bigger unanswered question.
It's like they're trying to hide from their own positions because they know that they're unpopular, so they have to slip it in disguise.
Yeah. And they also, and they know that the courts have previously ruled, back when they called it creationism, that, this is introducing religion into a public school curriculum, and you can't do that.
And as soon as it becomes actual science, it is perfectly welcome in the science classroom.
Please get intelligent design done in peer-reviewed journals and then put it in the textbooks. I'm serious. I would love to see this become real science.
Exactly.
So
I was honored to get to talk to Robert Pennock that night, though, who is the author of Tower of Babel, which is one of the best books on creationism I've read. Yeah. And he's a very nice guy, and we had a long talk about creationist strategies, and it was just a fun evening all around.
It was. I was afraid that this is going to be boring. It's going to be people droning on it. No, it was really exciting. And just to mention, before we go ahead and take our first call, I know folks have been waiting very patiently.
Can I get the website up for a second?
Our website?
Yeah.
Well, okay, it's above our heads, and
right.
But if you go to the past events page,
yes, it says events.
Yeah. It's the top menu will say past events,
right?
And you've got all the. Thank you, Russell. There it is, and below us too. You have put up audio clips of some of more speeches than the ones you just heard, and our testimony transcripts,
right?
As well, and some photographs. So very thorough coverage from us over the whole evening.
And a complete report, which I'm still working on, but it's going to be a very complete report of like a lot of the speakers and everything that happened all evening.
But if you want
to check that out,
the best in-depth coverage, I think, of the whole hearing, you'll find there. So
thank you.
But Samantha Smoot, just to final word before we go to our caller, Troy, who's been waiting. She mentioned in her testimonial, in fact, she deviated from her prepared material because she was talking about just some of the shenanigans that the ID camp had pulled, and apparently the most startling thing that happened that evening. I didn't see this, but after she got done with her testimony, I ran out to the lobby and corralled her and said, "Tell me what happened." Apparently, earlier in the evening, there was a Baptist minister that I think the Discovery Institute people had been talking to before the hearing. Mm-hmm. But he got up there and he actually testified against introducing intelligent design into curriculum. He testified
introducing errors,
right? And introducing and he testified in favor of teaching evolution properly. And this did not sit well with the Discovery Institute people. Apparently, 3 or 4 of them followed him out into the hall and gave him a big verbal harangue, which apparently concluded with one of them slapping him on the back or shoulder.
Yeah, they were acting fake friendly, like hey.
Yeah,
and just surrounding him. It was
and one of them called him a bastard, apparently.
The guy in the blue shirt was a Discovery Institute person.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So we, so that was apparently not, So that's when the mask came off, as it were, and you just see how unfriendly the folks were. But there were actually there were a few Christians that evening who testified in favor of teaching proper science. There's a young woman was a graduate student.
Quite a few, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people just threw in as an afterthought. By the way, I'm a Christian. But
Yeah, but I was very impressed by one woman who came on, in fact, right after Stephen Weinberg. She is a graduate student from Rice. And she described how she's like, I don't want this put in textbooks. I'm a Christian. She was very devout. But described how she had this ability to compartmentalize her religious beliefs, which she said these are based on faith, and you can't use the scientific method to talk about them. And now, of course, we don't agree with these views, but she showed that it's possible. And the ID camp, they don't like Christians like this.
No.
They call them theistic evolutionists, and they treat them like traitors.
I think they're a bigger threat to them than just some atheists, because, atheists are fringe in our society.
Yeah. And that woman tried to catch her out in the questioning. She asked her some really pointed questions that I think the gist of it was, doesn't this make you like a bad Christian, or isn't this weird?
Right.
How can you have these views that seem to be very disparate and contradictory?
Yeah. She read that quote about evolution being undirected, and she said, "How can you think that?"
Yeah, that's right.
That's
if you believe in a God, and the woman wouldn't buckle. I mean, she's like, well, because my beliefs are based on faith, and science is science, and the two are separate disciplines. So that was kind of impressive.
Wow.
But yeah, they're not friendly with dissension in their own ranks.
Apparently not.
But okay, well, that's enough of that. I mean, we've spent most of the show going over that, and it's time to take our very patient callers now. Troy is on line one. Hey, man, thanks for waiting.
Hey, I really appreciate it. I like your show because you show a lot of different types of religion and different ethnic groups. What I was wanting to find out is like these scientists that make all these, religious claims, and the ones that want to fight against religious claims. Does they speak on all religion group, or is it just based on one particular religion and race?
Okay.
And I have another comment on.
I'm sorry, did we lose him? Oh, there you are. Okay.
And I want to follow up with another question. Is that the scientist that's making all these suggestions, which race is he talking about? Is he like one race?
Race?
For his race.
Okay. Right.
For his God. Who created this?
Okay, I think to answer both your questions, I don't think it breaks down along racial lines, but along religious lines, I think that you will find that most of the people from the intelligent design movement are conservative Protestant Christians.
White.
And white, yeah. But I don't. But I think that it's the religious ideology is far more in play there. I mean, it's just white is what they happen to be. I don't think it breaks down along religious lines. You don't tend to find, like I said, you find a lot of Christians who are more liberal, not quite as conservative. You don't tend to find as many Catholics. In fact, the Roman Catholic Church has come out and said, evolution's fine with us. You don't tend to find.
The Pope even said that.
Yeah, you don't tend to find too, contrary to what Terry Leo seems to think. I don't know of too many, at least very prominent Jewish proponents of intelligent design.
Muslim, yes.
Yeah,
Muslim. There are some Muslim creationists.
Yeah, Muslim, I think, but they're not as activist as the.
Well, not here anyway. I've seen whole websites by Muslim creationists.
But we're talking about the movement in America. As it stands. I think
when it comes to the movement here.
It's mainly politically conservative, Republican, Protestant Christians.
Yeah, because that's what I was thinking. Because you take, for instance, each one of you gentlemen, how each one of you think that we got here as human beings on Earth? How do you think we come about?
As right now,
left to right.
Okay. All right. Ashley, you want to go first?
Am I left or right?
Okay.
Ashley will go first.
It's reversed on camera.
We'll start on this side.
Yeah.
How we got here, there's a lot of science looking into, it depends on how far back.
How are we created?
Yeah, it depends on how far back you want to go. The science of how the planets and stars form, that's cosmology. How life originally started is called abiogenesis. And once life is actually there and how it gets from, primordial soup type stuff to us is evolution. Basically, those are the sciences to look to try and find out the answers of how we got where we are.
Yeah.
A lot of it was just, again, the evolutionary teachings. Animals and life forms compete for resources, which are not, they're not infinite resources. It's competition for resources. The ones that are better able to get those resources do better.
Oh.
So.
Okay.
Yeah. In terms of going all the way back to our basic origins, right now it's a field of ongoing study. I admit I don't know. I don't proclaim to know why we have a universe, why we're all here. Those are big. Those are both scientific as well as philosophical questions. My opinion is that natural processes were at work. How those came about, I don't pretend to be the expert, but science is a thing that, and I think what makes a lot of the enemies of science uncomfortable is that it isn't a thing that provides you with absolute certainty about issues. I'm sorry, I've got to...
That's okay. But me and you on the same track as the gentleman was right at first, but me and you having the same idea of what I was saying. They so destructive about they can't do it themselves that they want to find out how was man created.
Yeah, and it's very natural. It is natural for people, I think, because
I wouldn't say distraught is the right word.
Yeah.
I mean, the idea of science is that we're interested in everything in the world, and we would like to find out as much as we can without relying on shortcut answers like, oh, well, and then a miracle happens, and, like that Far Side cartoon.
Right, because, solving mysteries is what makes science exciting, and the fact that there are always new mysteries to solve makes it even more exciting.
Right, because
but I think that it is natural for people to be a little bit dubious about, or to at least wonder about the possibility of things like creative forces or higher powers or intelligences, because what that is an act of essentially people projecting the way we do things upon the larger universe as a whole. We are creative animals. We make stuff. We design our world to fit us, and so that's how we understand how things work in our lives. And so when people say, oh, well, then this all must have had some kind of design involved to it, people come to that conclusion just as a natural result of, well, this is how I do stuff in my life. This is how other human beings go about their business. We make buildings to live in. We make cars to drive in.
Right.
So it's just people projecting the way we do things as people upon the universe as a whole. But it's not always... and I think not in most cases an accurate comparison to make, but it's natural. I mean, you can understand why someone would think that way.
Yes.
Yeah. Russell.
Well, first of all, I think asking the question, how were we created, kind of prejudices the answer right away, because created is a transitive verb. It implies somebody doing the creating, whereas the the question that scientists attempt to answer is, how is it that we got here? It's subtly different. It doesn't discount the possibility that there could be some super being up there who made everything, but it doesn't assume that. Richard Dawkins, who wrote The Blind Watchmaker, basically says that we don't really know how the first life showed up, not because we lack possibilities, but because in fact there are so many possible ways that it could have started that it's impossible at this moment to choose between them without further evidence coming in. But he says once we have something that can replicate itself and that can basically make copies of itself that are imperfect and change. The theory of evolution basically tells us in great detail how we could have gotten from the first single-celled organism to what we have today. So the idea of how did we get here is not really that big of a mystery anymore. In fact, I think Robert Pennock, when he was talking on Wednesday, said something to an incredulous board member along the lines that, yes, we know more about evolution more solidly than we know about gravity.
Right.
Yeah. And
also one other quick point I just wanted to make. A lot of times people with creation ideas or something like that say, look how perfect the world is. It's just the right temperature, they got the right amount of water, all these different things. It's so perfectly designed for us. That's like saying, look, our noses were so perfectly designed that they hold a pair of glasses. You're looking at it backwards. Yeah. The glasses were designed for the nose.
Yes, it was.
We evolved and we got to be the way that we are because of the forces that are, at work essentially in the world.
Right, because if we didn't happen to be, to tolerate temperatures of about 70 degrees, then we wouldn't be here.
And the argument that you bring up, they call it the anthropic principle, also fails because when you find it made by religious people who are making it, they don't realize that it's an argument that actually refutes the notion of an omnipotent God. Because an all-powerful God could create us to live in the vacuum of space.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter how far away the Earth is from the sun. It doesn't matter about our particular climate being between this temperature and that temperature. If God wanted to make us to where we lived, where it was colder, He could do it. If He wanted to make us so that we could live on the surface of the sun, He could do it. So the anthropic principle is sort of it negates the point that they're trying to make, which is that they're trying to use limits to prove their limitless God, and it doesn't work that way.
Because I don't understand how you can get so many different groups because you think 2 white people can't make a Hispanic baby, 2 Hispanics can't make a white baby.
Well, I
but that's not what evolution says.
What you need really is a primer on evolution.
Right.
And those websites that were up a minute ago, like talkorigins.org, have an excellent introductory page that tells you the basics of how it works and what to expect and what not to expect. Yeah. So I think that's a good thing to read.
It's a good explanation of how we get race too, because race is just the result of genetic drift.
Right.
And it's not really a thing that has a plan behind it. Listen, and I'm sure you have a lot of really other interesting questions, but we're getting close to this latter half of our show, and we want to go ahead.
But I just want to say that whoever was this created, if it was a creative, if it wasn't, I think scientists they can't understand it because whoever created this one single man, he has to be more powerful than us to. Before we get in this generation, we can't do the things that he has done and been doing over millions of years. Is what I'm saying. If it's true and if it's not true, is what I'm saying.
Well, again, if you ask the question using the word created, then you're already assuming what the answer is going to be.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, that is an argument where you're sort of arguing from your conclusion. But the point is, regardless of this creator's vast powers and what have you, I mean, if it seems to me that there is no real reason why the existence of such a being should be a question exempt from the same kind of scientific study that you would apply to discovering the existence of anything else. Mm-hmm. So that's that. All right, let's see what Gordon on line 2 has to say. He's been waiting very patiently. Thanks for waiting.
Hi, how's it going? All right. I was watching a program about a week ago called Proof, which was more directly talking about the proof behind the idea of a perfect designer or whatever, Mm-hmm. And they were saying mostly that their proof for this was the mathematics behind the universe directly being so perfect for it.
Sounds like something Dembski had a hand in.
Yeah, correct. That's what reminded me of it. They were saying that because it's so perfectly designed for the universe that there's no other explanation. It must have been some perfect designer that did it because it doesn't, flow otherwise.
I'm reading what is it? That last book by Douglas Adams now.
Right.
Salmon of Doubt. Uh-huh. And it's a collection of his later essays. And one of the things, he gave a talk on evolution, actually. And he said, it's kind of like if you were a puddle of water and woke up one morning and said, this is an interesting hole I find myself in. It's shaped exactly like me. It must be designed to have me in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it again, as we've already stated, it's sort of it's arguing backwards. It's like looking at the state of things now and then applying sort of mathematical formulae to that and coming up with the conclusion, yes, well, this puddle must have been designed for us to fit directly into.
Right.
As I said earlier on the show, there has been a lot of criticism of Dembski's mathematics and the way he tries to apply it to biological questions, and a lot of his critics say these are good mathematical formulae, but they're not applicable.
Completely self-centered maths.
Yeah, they're not applicable in this way.
The thing about math is, math is great if you have the right set of initial conditions, but the math the answers you get from math are only as good as the assumptions behind the math.
And he seems so absorbed in the math that he's deciding that it explains things, not things explain it.
Right.
That's a good point.
And it's absurd that you can think that you can just do a bunch of mathematical equations things without thinking about in context of the real world and think that you can actually get some kind of concrete answer. Because math is just a tool to determine one thing from something else you already know.
Right.
If you don't start from nothing, then math does nothing for you, which is why it's really ridiculous that Dembski is even treated as if he knows anything about evolution at all.
Yeah. I know. I mean, there's no one is out there suggesting that he is not your go-to guy if you're stuck on a tricky math problem.
It strikes me as completely ludicrous that they would assume that math created the universe, whereas it's more the universe created the math, and the same with all the creation.
Well, we created
evolution.
the math to describe certain aspects of the universe in a particular way.
But that doesn't necessarily mean they apply.
But we can't calculate how probable life is because we don't know the exact circumstances unless we assume some things about the circumstances under which it showed up.
Yeah.
We only have one example to go on.
Yeah.
Basically ours.
And as Steven Weinberg pointed out, even if you take into account this incredible mathematical improbability of the emergence of life on this planet here now in this way, the universe is an awfully big place. And you've got a lot of galaxies, a lot of stars, and a lot of planets going around those stars. And, you know, it's reasonable to assume that with that many, I mean, with a number that's so high you can't even calculate it practically, you're going to get life on some of these planets. And those beings on those planets are going to think, my, aren't we lucky?
And it also strikes me as really irrelevant, the fact that they bring up, oh, well, if it wasn't perfect, you know, then we wouldn't be here because either way, we're here anyway, you know.
Yeah,
so,
the argument is often made that the universe is fine-tuned for life, and the reply to that is, well, if that is the case, why is life such a rare part of it? You know, I mean, why are 8 out of the 9 planets in our solar system wasted?
Only as we know by our math, created by our own standards. So.
Exactly. So, great, Gordon. Well, thanks for your call, man.
Sure.
And take care.
Yeah.
477-2288 is that number to call us live. We still have 20 minutes to go in the show, folks. If you want to give us a ring, and we'll put that number back up on the screen.
You shouldn't say that. I mean, you shouldn't say the number since it sometimes gets rebroadcast.
Oh, well, if you're watching us on Tuesday.
Today is September, what is today?
This is the 14th.
14th.
If you're watching this show and it's Tuesday, don't call us because it's your reruns. That's the reruns of this show that run every Tuesday at 4:30.
If you see this number at the bottom of the screen, though, you're okay.
Yeah. There we go.
Going back to that small point you made, though, about how little life there actually is in the universe, and people could still say, well, look at this planet. You know, this planet is just so perfectly designed. Well, the upper, 1 mile of crust has life on it. The rest of it is rock, dead.
Magma.
It's magma. It's rock. Yeah. We are basically, just kind of slime on the surface.
Well, actually, some interesting theories about abiogenesis have the idea that maybe we started in all that.
In the vents,
in
right?
the vents at the bottom of the oceans, yeah.
But still, again, that refutes the notion of an omnipotent God.
Exactly.
We should be able to.
Does he really need a universe this big for this little planet?
Yeah. I mean, with no limits, why use limits to prove that this is all the workings of a being that has no limits to his powers? Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Okay, well, suddenly the phones have totally lit up in our last 20 minutes, so we'll go ahead and get those names up. No, those are the old names, hon. So with Steve, we'll get those names to you. But if you are watching us also and we don't manage to get around to you, which we never get around to all of the callers on every show, our viewer feedback address is tv@atheist-community.org. If you want to send us a viewer email, we always answer our emails. The best emails we get, we will bring them on the air and answer them on the air. And of course, really good ones too, we'll put up on our website. It's all kinds of fun. tv@atheist-community.org. And we're still waiting for the names of the callers to come in. But so I was very proud to be part of Wednesday, as I'm sure you were.
Yes, I was.
Just to give a heads up to everyone who did participate, we had John Coons, who was one of our former members, and who's a biology teacher. He's since moved out of town. Michelle Gadouche. Steve Elliott, actually our producer, who is unaccustomed to public speaking, but did it anyway, and did a very fine job. And Don Baker talked a little bit, and towards the ending towards the end of the evening, I finally got to speak and brought up the directly religious quotes from all of these people who are claiming that they're not religiously motivated.
Also, a shout out to Jeff Jones and Don Lawrence for showing up to hang out and support us.
Moral support, yeah, very good. So But yeah.
And all those great people at the Texas Freedom Network.
Yeah. And I assume from them we will find out when decisions are being made as to what textbooks to take.
I have a news story.
Okay, well, tell you what. Why don't we go ahead? We'll talk to Ryan.
I'll talk about that later.
Ryan, I think, is our first caller on line 1. And by the way, I'm sorry I was eating lozenges on the air, but I've had a horribly sore throat ever since like yesterday evening. Just so.
Oh well, good thing you're not talking for an hour and a half or anything.
I soldier on despite I'm not hoarse, but anyway, got to do what I got to do. Ryan, thank you for calling. What's up?
Hello. So anyway, I enjoy your show. I just wanted to make a quick point about the fact that you kind of mentioned that the waste of the other 8 planets. I mean. Mm-hmm. That's not proven. There could very well be life on those other 8 planets.
That's very true.
And I mean, I'm sure you guys may, confer that. But, we have a wonderful array of life, things that, can just live down miles deep in the rock and actually gain their energy from pure rock. There was a new strain of bacteria just isolated, I think, about a month ago called strain 121. It actually divides in an autoclave, which is 16 pounds of pressure, 121 degrees Celsius.
It
divides and multiplies. And I just want to say that it takes this sort of diversity for us to exist. And I don't know. I don't see how you can look at anything else as being, I mean, to me, the mystery of God is mysterious, but the mystery of evolution itself is even more mysterious and more beautiful. And it's crazy that we still have to battle through these people that cannot see that. I don't know. So.
Yeah, right. No, we're already living in the 21st century, people. Come on.
Yeah. When I was a kid, I thought, year 2000, we'd have flying space scooters. I want my flying
space
scooter.
I want my jetpack.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Dennis Lube, when I did the show with him yesterday, the audio show, said that they're testing flying like 2 or 4 person cars now.
Like the Blade Runner
mobiles? We probably
mobiles?
won't be able to afford them anytime soon.
Oh, and and the last thing I want is like drunks on a Friday night after getting out of the bars, taking off in their flying cars.
Well, Dennis actually told me it's all computerized.
Well, I think they should do that with ground cars first. But anyway, your point is well taken,
and with Microsoft
Ryan.
out of the way.
What science teaches us about the universe, you always find is far more amazing than these ready-made pat conclusions that believers in the supernatural will attach themselves to, with a great deal of emotional investment a lot of the time. To find this bacteria that can exist in water that would boil any living thing that you would think. To understand exactly how cells do what they do. It's always so much more interesting to find out through science the way the world really works than when you look at how science teaches us those things and what it teaches, that people would prefer to believe in things like ghosts and pixies and elves and gods and magical reasons for stuff. It just seems so imaginatively and intellectually impoverished.
Yeah,
to choose to do that and not learn the cooler stuff that's the reality.
Right. And also, I mean, with this new strain of bacteria that lives way under the ground, under the earth, what is the purpose of that? I mean, what did the intelligent designer have in mind when he said, "Oh, I know, I'll make a new one of these. They don't have enough bacteria down there."
Yeah, and just to make it fun, I'll make it grow in extreme heat. Yeah. How does flesh-eating bacteria or the Ebola virus fit into the divine plan of an intelligent designer? It just doesn't.
Platypus.
Yeah.
God cannot be omnipotent and benevolent at the same time. And that's a good point. And if you don't understand that, and you're watching this show, I mean, do some research. Understand what benevolence is. It's not.
Well, understand what omnipotence is.
Yes, absolutely. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Hey, we appreciate your call, Ryan. Thanks.
For calling.
Yeah, good points. Just a reminder to all of the unbelievers watching us today of our bagel shop meetings, 10:30 a.m. Sunday mornings. If you'd like to meet another gang of atheists, that's what we do. And we invite all atheists and agnostic and just the non-religious of every stripe. You are welcome to come and meet other heathens. Who's next? Herman? Line 2 has been holding. Thanks, Herman, for holding.
Shocky ducky?
Yeah.
Shocky ducky, quack quack?
What are you speaking Esperanto? Sorry, missed it.
This
David.
is an English-speaking show.
Hi, you're on the air.
Yeah, I speak English.
Okay,
cool.
Good.
Okay.
The other guy, we weren't sure what he was doing.
I think there's a big difference between believing in some creator or higher intelligence and believing in, say, the Bible or the Quran or these other people who want to tell you, that if there is a creator, then this is his will, and impose that on you or something. Because to me, when I look at society, at the world, I see intelligence everywhere. It's woven into your DNA, making you particularly Martin, and then your DNA, Ashley, and your other buddy's DNA. And each one of y'all are your own individual from that intelligence. And if you look at every little life form, it has that little chain of intelligence in it, and it reproduces it over and over and creates itself as a seed buds into a tree or whatever, and and sprouts food that is edible and tasty. And whenever you look at things and you think of the intelligence driven behind the genetic code, you got to ask yourself, can it spontaneously evolve?
Well, I think that, again, it is an assumption to think that the genetic code, as remarkable as it is the result of intelligence. It seems that is a projection. That's I think people sort of trying to apply, human characteristics to things that we don't understand. But there doesn't
they
really
have more intelligence in an animal than they do, say, in a building.
But again,
you wouldn't
intelligence.
hesitate to say that a building was built by a builder who designed it for a purpose.
Right.
Just like you're designed for a purpose, and everybody is.
Well, wait, but we understand that buildings.
I'm not saying God of Christianity is right or anything.
But again, we
believe it, though, right?
Hang on. We understand that a building has a purpose, right? It's shelter. We understand the purpose of a building. What is the purpose of a bacteria on the sea floor that lives in hydrothermal vents?
Well, what is it digests and eats things, and then something else eats off of it, and something else eats off of it, and there's this incredible chain.
Why does that require intelligence?
That'd be like saying you have no purpose. What is you're not a creature of purpose or design. It's like saying you really have no purpose.
Well, but my purpose is something that I decide what it is.
But for some reason, you use in a building, you can have purpose in a building and therefore give it purpose, but you personally have no purpose.
Well, of course a building has purpose because we know that it was specifically designed because we've actually seen humans make up plans to draw buildings.
But
humans build buildings.
But a human has to be of value before it can give value to a building.
But we understand the nature of buildings as designed and constructed, purposefully constructed objects because we have seen that take place. We know that things like architects and construction teams exist. But what you're doing to attach that and make an equivalency argument between that and something in nature is you're trying to say that we understand that artifacts are artifacts. But is it appropriate to say that something that occurs in nature is the same thing as an artifact? And I don't think that you can really, that's a much more difficult proposition to prove, and I don't know that it can be done. Because once again, what is the purpose in a cockroach? What is the purpose in Ebola that just kills people?
I think the purpose in say you is to attach your consciousness to that. Because my question kind of is, why is your particular consciousness that's sitting there drinking your water right now, and only you're drinking it, because you're unique?
Which I decided to do.
Exactly. But why is that consciousness tied to your particular genetic strain? Why are you incarnated in that body and not incarnated in the body next to your other guy's body? You know what I'm saying? Now, that's the purpose of you.
Well, because his parents went to a certain dance, however many years ago.
No.
And if that hadn't happened, then maybe he wouldn't be here, but somebody else could be.
But again, you're in the present living, and so are you.
Yeah.
But again,
and I will admit, it's 1,000,000,001 chance that I personally am here.
That's the purpose of your body.
The fact that I am here is a small point. Something else may very well have been here if I wasn't.
But do you perceive a miracle in the fact you exist?
No.
Yes.
When nothing existed, think of this. At one time, nothing of any high life form existed, right?
Yeah.
Nothing was consciously sitting there going, smell the air, feel the body, I'm alive, I'm hungry, whatever.
Right.
Nobody was doing that. And now you, out of this nothingness, have appeared, and you're in being. You're right now arguing a point of
it took a heck of a long time to get here.
Quality.
Yeah.
But you're a being that has consciousness. Is the point? Out of nowhere, your consciousness existed. Yours next to you, your buddies. We're all here, and you're in that particular body. Where did all that come from?
Well, and where did this intelligence that is supposedly made all of this that you're arguing for come from?
I'm just saying the evidence that it is designed by something greater than me, because I didn't design you.
I don't think it's evidence.
I think plants, and I didn't design so you could eat the plant.
But you're not arguing from evidence. You're arguing from an assumption. Okay, you're arguing from your conclusion.
Assuming that this creator exists, do you think that he would be very complex?
Absolutely.
Okay, so wait a minute, and everything.
Hang on, wait. It's his turn now.
And everything
David,
complex needs a designer, right?
Probably so. Yeah. So he would have to have a creator.
Okay.
There's like an infinite level of creators you'd have to go to. That's what I'm saying.
That's
I don't really comprehend any of it.
Yeah, that's the problem with the argument.
I'm not saying
don't comprehend any of it, but you're making stuff up
for creators. All I'm saying.
Yeah.
The thing here is that it's essentially an argument from incredulity. I don't understand how this could have happened. Therefore, here's a different way that it could have. Right. Now, if you have evidence, if science comes up with evidence that there was a creator, then great, I'm all for it. But right now, we have evidence that shows that we could have gotten here through evolution, through abiogenesis, through all of these different processes.
We do understand through the sciences how things that appear to be incredibly complex can arise through natural processes.
We have reasons to believe this stuff. And so until we get a better idea and better evidence supporting something else, stick with what you got proof for.
Well, because right now, David, the argument that you're making is called God of the gaps. Okay, it is. I don't see how this could have. It's whatever gap we have.
God, though, I really.
Intelligence.
I saw evidence around me for something greater than me that created something.
Intelligence of the gaps, creator of the gaps. It's the same principle involved. Wherever there is a gap in human understanding of how the universe works, you insert this thing called, either God or the creative intelligence or the higher power, and you say, well, that must have done it. But that doesn't really answer anything because it just introduces a new mystery. Yeah. You're trying to solve a mystery with another mystery, and that really isn't helpful to you. Instead, all we can do is look at the evidence that we have. If it appears to us that because something is very complex, that one possible explanation of that could be a design or an intelligence force that has a purpose making it that way, then that's one possibility, and we will have to look to see if the prevailing evidence points to that, but we can't really get to that at this point. So
it's a universe
right now,
of complex systems at this point. You've got a sun, you've got stars flying around it. I mean, the moon, the objects, us flying around it, and they're all intertwined into each other.
But those things are basically inevitable according to what science has figured out. I mean, when things get close enough, they combust. It just happens. That's the way the universe works. And we're looking at this after the fact and saying, isn't it incredible that all this stuff is happening when, in fact, that's just the way that things turn out?
Yeah, again, it's the puddle of water saying, wow, this hole is just the right size for me. Well, you're looking at the question backwards, basically.
One other thing about evolution, then, is why don't we have, the missing link between all the species,
Oh, here we go.
Because there isn't just one.
You've got all these individual species branches, and they can't, for some reason, mate with one another, which would seem to be illogical if they sprang from the same genetic tree, and they're just little
that's exactly what evolution predicts.
And that would actually increase evolution if they could mate between species, but they can't. You can have animals that are very similar, but they can't mate.
Well, do you see? Yeah, and that's speciation. And
it almost says they didn't come from the same root because they can't mate.
No, it just says that at a certain point, coming from the same root, they diverged, they speciated, and now, that's how the phylogenetic tree works. If you look at these two URLs below us, there's talkorigins.org and talkdesign.org, and they have very detailed facts, and these are articles written by scientists, and if you really want an answer to that question, that's the location to go right there.
Yeah, I think ultimately the whole question is really because we have to die. That's the only reason we have a God and religion and everything else is because at some point in your life you realize, I don't want to give up life and consciousness, and you got to believe in something like spirit in order to say I forgot the body. It's a thing of older people that are going away, or people that are seeing the end of life. And whenever you're young and strong, you're brave, and you just say I don't need God. But when you get old and you got to die, all of a sudden you think I need something else to hang my hat on.
Well,
I don't
that's
want to give
part
up
of
life.
it. But another part is that some people, have a hard time growing up and getting out of the house.
Well, when it is so woven into our culture that it just becomes, a meme that we're all brought up with from infancy, it's hard to kind of shake it. But we appreciate your questions, and seriously, check out those websites for more evolution information. All right, thanks a lot. Okay. Well, I thought that was a pretty good show. Again, I'm sorry for my sore throat. I know munching mints to take care of it on the air, but boy, it's just like I probably sound like 2 octaves deeper than I usually do. Sorry. But that's it. That's our show for today. We appreciate you tuning in. I appreciate Russell coming on, giving his excellent presentation. I wish we saw more of you. Ashley, thanks. Good to have you back.
Welcome.
Don't forget to go to atheistcommunity.org and check out the events page for full write-up of those textbook hearings.
And tv@atheist-community.org is our viewer feedback email. If you have more questions for us, and these right here you're seeing right now are just a bunch of websites of interest on various subjects. So thanks a bunch. We'll be here. We're here every Sunday, 4:30. Reruns of this show run every Tuesday, 4:30. Nonprofits is every other Saturday at 2. And that is it for all of us here at ACA, me, Ashley, Russell, that is our show. Theists, we don't hate you. We just think you're wrong. Bye-bye. Take care. And there go our love rings.
We don't want to wave the whole time.
To Austin.
Just go away.
We love you, Austin. Bye-bye. Go watch something else now.